This is a little known chapter about death of JFK, and this is another one of the victims that occurred after the death of JFK for asking too many questions about various things. And she had an interview with Jack Ruby. Her name was Dorothy Kilgallen. She's famous for one thing, I know, well, for many things, but she was many years on What's My Line, popular television show that ran in the 50s and 60s. And she's extremely smart, uncanny. Her and a fellow named Bennett seem to always come up with the right questions to guess the participants' occupation, who they were trying to guess, whether it was a celebrity or non-celebrity. But she's very impressive as to getting the right answers. And this is something I'm going to relate to because JFK was legit, and I harped on this a couple of times before. I highly, highly doubt Ron Paul is legit, despite having 30 years of a track record and all this type of stuff, because he'd be dead. I'm serious, he'd be dead. There'd be no possible way he'd be alive. And I'm going to cut right to the chase here because I could tell you before there was ever a popular internet, there was ways to kill politicians and kill people that are a problem by making it look like natural causes. It could be cancer, liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, heart attacks, and it could look totally natural, and there'd be no questions on it at all. And they did this in the case of many people around JFK. If there's ever going to be a guy on the top that's going to actually do all these things like Ron Paul says, he's never going to tell the whole world he's going to do this. He's going to play the game, and he's going to stick him in the back. And there's going to be a lot of dirty things going on. It's never going to be out in the open. Not in a million years. But I did find this very interesting about Dorothy Kilgallen, and she broke a lot of silence and things about Marilyn Monroe's death and things like that. She asked a lot of questions, and she said she discovered something that was going to break the whole JFK assassination mystery wide open. She had this interview with Jack Ruby, and she told the same story to her next door neighbor, her hairdresser, her agent, her publisher, and a producer and host of Nightlife. So Dorothy, she told Israel about a very mysterious and sinister player in the JFK assassination, to whom she gave the code name Ferret Man. Now it's David Ferrie. Now he turned up dead in 1967. Okay. With both a suicide note and also the coroner said it was natural causes at the same time. But Dorothy Kilgallen was found dead, sitting fully upright, fully dressed, upright in her bed early in the morning. Said it was a lethal combination of alcohol and barbiturates. Basically the same type of thing that happened with Marilyn Monroe. So she questioned the death of Marilyn Monroe and on the other side of the continent, who had also died of a barbiturate dose, supposedly by suicide. But she put a lot of hard questions in there. And if you actually seen her on What's My Line and watched how uncanny she is at picking out the right questions to ask and following to get to the correct answer, you'd think she's got ESP or something. So I could see how this one was killed. Now I'm going to relate this back to Ron Paul again. And the Fed, Mr. Ron Paul. That is absolutely got to be total BS. I'm guarantee you that 100%. Most people won't believe that. I am 100% know that guy is not real. He's not real, or else he would have been dead. And I know they're coming out with a whole pile of stuff about, they're not mentioning him. you know what? They're that vicious. They're that underhanded. They will still play the part all the way like he's the bad opposition. I say he's all part of it, and it's all a scam. You know, so you could think I'm paranoid, but consider the number of people they killed around JFK and how long many years that went on for, and you know the amount of people that covered it up, just for certain things that JFK tried to stop, which is the Federal Reserve, the war in Vietnam, and the type of things like that. No possible way is Ron Paul legit. No possible way. And so, you know, they're talking about later after Dorothy Kilgallen died that you're watching What's My Line. There was something strange about the show. John Daly was stiff. Bennett Corf and Bennett Cerf, Arlene Francis, and others were just as wooden and flattened in a kind of force, like they were joking around like nothing happened. But they all felt it. So, you know, it wasn't the same deal. But anyway, yeah, again, here is talking about Dorothy Kilgallen, who was a fearless journalist who broke major stories and was the only reporter to interview Lee Harvey Oswald's killers, Jack Ruby. That was her biggest case yet, investigating President John F. Kennedy's assassination and finding a fault with the official story. Became the last one she ever pursued. She died mysteriously on November 1965 after being threatened, but the cops never probed further. Now, if you watch her on these episodes of What's My Line from way back, you would get an idea that this lady definitely was very, very sharp and would be able to determine what the truth is and what direction is to go in when she's running into dead ends. So I think she did come up with a lot of stuff, and she was killed. So I gotta say, you relate this back to Ron Paul. It's a joke and a half. You know, it's a sad thing to say, but you're not, you know, even if he got elected, it's not legit. It says on August 3rd, 1962, Kilgallen became the first journalist to refer publicly to Marilyn Monroe's relationship with Kennedy, or a Kennedy. After 48 hours, within 48 hours, Marilyn was found dead of a drug overdose at her Los Angeles residence. The inquiry into her death was marred by numerous unanswered questions and contradictions in the medical findings. Dorothy publicly challenged the authorities with tough questions. For instance, she wrote, if a woman described as Marilyn's housekeeper, Eunice Murray, was really a housekeeper, why was her bedroom such a mess? It was a small house. It should have been easy to keep tidy. Kilgallen also wanted to know, why was Marilyn's door locked that night when she usually didn't lock it? If she was just trying to get some sleep and took the overdose of pills accidentally, why was the light on? Usually people sleep better in the dark. And then she asked, why did the first doctor to arrive on the scene have to call the second doctor before calling the police? Any doctor, even a psychiatrist, knows a dead person when he sees one, especially when rigor mortis has set in and there are marks of lividity on the surface of the face and the body. Why the consultation? Why the big time gap in such a small town? Mrs. Murray gets worried at about 3 a.m. and it's almost 6 a.m. before the police get to the scene. So, you know, she was nailing them left and right. And then she's dead, right? But I'm not just saying it's over this. You know why John F. Kennedy was killed. You know, anybody with a brain knows various reasons. He's challenging the entire military-industrial complex. And he didn't come out and really say it. He did it more on his sly. He talked to people around him. You know, who do I got to worry about? And he was dismantling them. You know, that's what he was doing. And, you know, you got a guy like Ron Paul out here in the open saying, oh, you know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull all the troops home and the military. You know, we're just going to have coastal defense. We're going to cut out the whole entire industrial, military-industrial complex. And that's going to be the end of it. I'm going to end the Federal Reserve. You know? I'm going to tell you right now, this was her husband too. Richard Colmar was found dead in bed of a drug overdose, just like Dorothy, on January 7th, 1971. And this other guy, Johnny Ray, was more convinced. He said, beyond question, I believe Dorothy was murdered, but I can't prove it. And she got a call from somebody that knew her very well, that he can call her at home on a Sunday night just before she left for the TV show and make a late date with her. And she rushed to change her wardrobe at the last minute. The cops didn't go into any detail or do anything about, doing any kind of further probes. It's stating in here, because I'm not going to read this whole thing, but some of the key points. But I'm relating this to Ron Paul. This lady, I mean, she wasn't trying to end the Fed. She just answered some tough, good questions about what was going on with Marilyn Monroe's death, and she died basically the same way. And she had this interview with Jack Ruby, and she said she had information that could blow open the whole Kennedy assassination. And if you watch her on What's My Line in those TV shows, you'd see she has a very uncanny ability to go in the right direction, and if there's a dead end, she'd switch. And it's like she was very good at investigating and reporting. It almost would fool you, but the authorities should have pinned down her whereabouts. As Lee Israel told the magazine, ordinarily in the case of a woman's suspicious death, the police would go all out and at least ask pro forma questions of the people who were around her the night before. But the New York cops did nothing. And he says, I mean nothing. The lead detective on the case, who had 6 children, abruptly resigned from the New York Police Department. He has 6 kids. Without a pension, a short time later, moved out of town and opened up a pricey restaurant. And you figure he got some capital to do that. So I'm going to tell you again about Ron Paul. The guy is not legit. I could tell you a couple others. I don't want to say too much on here, but not that it makes me any special, but maybe I have a very suspicious mind on things. But if they can kill a person like this, and everybody just shuts up, and she was extremely popular at the time, maybe not well known. Well, I don't think she's well known today at all. It depends on how old you are. But if they killed her and they shut her up like that, and no cops asked any questions, and and she's coming out with all these things that, questions about Marilyn Monroe's death. She has an interview with Jack Ruby, and this guy Ferret, he turns up dead a few years later. It was suicide with suicide notes, but it was the autopsy, or the coroner said that it was a natural causes that he died by. I think it was right before a trial he was supposed to come up to. And I don't like getting into all this stuff. I'm no buff on a JFK assassination, because you could just take this down a million alleys and it's like a big soap opera. But I do like to relate that to what's going on today. As much as people want to believe Ron Paul's legit, he's not. He's not. He'd be dead. He would have been dead a million years ago. And, if they can kill these people, and this stuff is like pretty much blatant killed. I know some of these stories in here to say, well, maybe she did commit suicide, or she had an accidental overdose of barbiturates or something. No way in hell. People get away with stuff because the majority of people are naive. And then you got the other majority of people into all these conspiracy theories and gossip. That's not the way to be. If Ron Paul was legit, they would have got rid of him in some way, got him out of office. They would have set him up on something that they would have made it done. He would have done something wrong. Anything. I don't care if he did anything wrong or not. They would have set him up that he did something wrong. I'm I'll give you another example. You know, you probably people don't know who Audie Murphy is, but he was like the most decorated World War II veteran of actually of all time. You know, he was involved, and I don't know if this is true, but he died of a plane crash. You know, years later. I think it was in, I forgot the year, but he was trying to get Jimmy Hoffa out of prison. That's why they thought they might have crashed his plane and stuff like that. But you know, if they could shut her up, and it's so obvious what happened, and you know all the people in the press, you know, they're all saying, look what they did to this woman, because you know she was like big columnist and very popular on TV, and what she was stating, right? Ron Paul, they could give him pancreatic cancer. I have a suspicion on somebody that it's not actually put out here on the internet that died of pancreatic cancer, and he was extremely intelligent. Died in his early 50s. Was a Harvard and Yale graduate and a Rhodes Scholar, and extremely aggressive, and did some things in the financial world that the guy I worked for had the main connection with. Somebody I worked for a while ago, and you know, I have suspicions on that too. I mean, Ron Paul, why can't he just die of liver cancer or pancreatic cancer? That would be the typical way it's done, and that's how it's been done for many years. You know, this stuff you see in the movies, that doesn't happen like that. And you know, I heard about that stuff they put on the internet with the heart attack gun that shoots somebody with it and gives them a heart attack. I don't even know how they do that. They can do stuff where they can introduce something by a handshake or just put it in food or anything, and you'll die of a cancer or some type of natural disease, and you'd never know. Now, in her case, you know, this Dorothy and Marilyn Monroe, they were basically killed the same way. And she was asking questions about Marilyn Monroe. But what was it all over? It was over JFK and why they killed JFK. Because he was doing just a fraction of the things that Ron Paul says he's going to do. And he says he's been going to do for all these years. He can't be legit. I'm sorry. You know, it's like saying Santa Claus doesn't exist. But that's what the guy is. He's bullshit. He's not. I'm sorry I said that. But he's not real. He's not real. I'll guarantee you he's not real. Sorry to say that.